Our society today in the 21st century is plagued by many problems which have global implications. While technology is rapidly advancing and drawing people around the globe closer, differences in cultures, religions, opinions, and ideologies continue to maintain a stronghold in our society, leading to conflict. Despite the advancement of destructive weapons and arms, fear is the most powerful weapon when it comes to fueling terrorism. Thus, terrorism is a global war where people are fighting against fear. From directly affecting those whose loved ones were lost in a local community to affecting world politics on a larger scale, terrorism is a relevant and growing problem. It is dictating international laws, security regulations, immigration policies, and relationships between nations, which then affect education, travel procedures, employability,
Terrorism is a category of danger that threatens society but is also produced by society itself. Howard Williams quotes Ulrich Beck's theory of risk society, where there is a shift in perceptions of the primary dangers we face from things like natural disasters outside of human control to ones produced by human action, including climate change, financial panic, and nuclear war, along with terrorism. Terrorism heavily pertains to a global society since, according to Wagner in his article, the global reach of Al-Qaeda is a source of great concern. More than 3,000 of its members have been arrested in 98 countries since September 11th, evidence that Al-Qaeda exists in at least half of the world's countries. This concerning statistic sheds light on how widespread the problem of terrorism is across all nations.
While this issue can be termed as a universal evil, the impact of terrorism can be viewed through varied lenses in different parts of the world. The three perspectives that I have personally gained insight from include a Western viewpoint, conflict in the Middle East, specifically in Israel, and the state of Kashmir in northern India.
That even though people living in Western societies are safer and healthier than at any point in human history, the prevention of potential dangers is a central preoccupation of society. He continues to claim that government and media often give more attention to particular threats, blowing them out of proportion. He states that since 9/11, Islamic terrorism has been characterized as the predominant security threat to the U.S. and Europe. The resulting war on terror drove changes in domestic and foreign policy and captured much media and public attention. This raises the ethical question of whether government and media reaction to terrorism have made the problem worse by bringing it into the limelight, given that acts of terror are often means of seeking attention. It also questions how the administration's response to terrorism has fueled other issues such as racial tensions, discrimination against certain religions, breaches of privacy, etc.
The second viewpoint comes from the situation in Israel, specifically by the Gaza border. The Gaza Strip is controlled by the terrorist regime of Hamas, and last month, according to a BBC News article, rockets were launched from Gaza and they destroyed a home near Tel Aviv in Israel, injuring 7 people, including children. In this region of the world, dealing with terrorism is more than just managing risk, since it's a direct threat looming over people's heads every day. In the Israeli town of Sderot by the Gaza border, bomb shelters are a common feature in playgrounds, and one can find piles of bombshells. This brings up the ethical issue of how terror affects people's everyday lives and how children are brought up under an umbrella of fear. Living with terror also brings up the issue of desensitization in the contentious occupied versus occupier situation. The conflict is two-sided and it affects innocent civilians on both sides who are subject to terror.
The third perspective comes from the terror-stricken region of Kashmir in India, where terror attacks from local militia in the name of religion are prevalent. The perspective sheds light on the brainwashing that leads to the propagation of extremist ideologies and violent acts like suicide bombing. According to an article from the Business Standard, Kashmiri teenagers are being brainwashed into believing that they are targeting enemies of Islam. An NDTV News article laid out further details stating that, according to officials, many youngsters are joining a terrorist group supported by Al-Qaeda and headed by Zakir Musa, who has been focusing on recruitment and brainwashing the youth. The ethical question in this case comes back to education. Many children in Kashmir are unable to attend schools due to constant attacks on these institutions based on religious pretexts. The lack of education and resources makes them susceptible to brainwashing.
In all of these situations and regions, the waters are treacherous since efforts to combat terrorism lead to severe consequences for innocent civilians who hope to lead normal lives. Resolving these ethical dilemmas requires investing in the interests and needs of people through a focus on education, healthcare, mental health, and practicing tolerance, amongst other things. Stricter rules and regulations should be imposed on the distribution and access of firearms and explosives as well. Since terrorism is a global issue, it needs to be combated by putting up a global front united by mutual respect and tolerance.